I think in stallions in general, if you look over the history of time and you just go back and look at horses like Danzig and Mr. Prospector, who maybe they didn't stay around that long, but they had speed, they were well bred, they were out of good mares, and you know, you just hope for some luck. And we're all doing this to breed a good 2-year-old. And of course, a lot of the gray stallions today were good 2-year-olds themselves. His mentality, he's a great-minded horse. If you go see him now, he's, I think, a very good-looking horse, and he's out of a great race mare. And with that combination, who knows, but luck has something to do with it, and we just hope for the best now. Midshipman as a foal was a medium-sized, very flashy-looking foal who just thrived, and we really liked him as a foal and as a weanling. Midshipman as a 2-year-old coming out of Aiken was, we thought quite a bit of him, and Tim Jones at the time thought he had enough talent to send to California, and we chose Bob Baffert to send him to as a 2-year-old. After he was weaned as a foal from his mother, we always put all our horses that we think are our most quality in a barn called Barn 2 here. Horses over the years that come from that barn have been Risen Star, Congaree, Raven's Pass, and Midshipman would have certainly fit in with those horses at the time, and that's why we chose that location. As always through from, you know, October up until February, March of his yearling year, he was just a very straightforward horse. A nice, not overly big horse, but a nice size horse that was always very sound and correct. As a yearling, you know, when we showed him to these trainers, they all liked him, and a number of them made the comment they would love to train him. So, and then from there he went to Aiken, and of course on to Bob Baffert. I remember early on, and it was funny because I was in Saratoga for the yearling sale up there the first part of August, and Midshipman had a couple of works out there, and I just so happened to bump into him as we were looking at some yearlings, and he said, you know, that Unbridled Song coach you sent out there, I think he can run a little bit. He said, I worked him with a couple other 2-year-olds this morning, and we're really excited about him. And so he said if he has a couple other good works, we'll run him shortly. He did kind of what Baffert thought he would do. He broke his maiden in his first start, came back, and won the Del Mar Futurity, you know, off of his maiden win, which is very hard to do. I remember the morning of the race, the day of the Breeders' Cup, Bob Baffert told John Adger and myself, he said, you know, I'm going to put him on the lead. I'm going to tell Garrett to just put him on the lead because I think he's the best horse, and let's just see what happens. And of course he put him on the lead, and he took him all the way around there and won like a good horse. You know, it's every breeder or owner's dream to be able to run in those kind of races and to win them and to be named champion. Well, I think, you know, any time that you've been off as long as he had and come back, you know, you always, if you're a good horse, you're going to run against good competition. So when he came back, and I remember he ran at Belmont and won, and that was his first real start on dirt. And I really believe he's a better dirt horse than he was a synthetic track horse. And I think people that saw that race at Belmont, that he won in a very fast time, and of course he went on and was third in the Breeders' Cup again. So it takes good horses to be able to do that. You know, I know the foal we have is out of a mare called Free for Racing, who is a good 2-year-old herself. So therefore, we're just trying to capitalize on that. The foal we have is a good foal, a flashy foal, very straightforward. And I hope that if people that gets a chance to come out and see these foals and see what he's like will make you want to go back and breed to him again. I know I certainly will. I think this year, the highest price short yearling this year at Keeneland January was an Unbridled Song. And I think Midshipman also has that qualities and those looks to pass on that speed that Unbridled Song has. And Midshipman always as a yearling was a very attractive horse. And of course, Tim Jones and Aiken saw it early on, Bob Baffert saw it. You know, it was something that this horse was telling them he was going to be a nice early horse. And the races he won as a 2-year-old are major races. You can't do that if you don't have some talent. And Unbridled Song, looking down through history, has produced some very, very good horses, and I don't see any reason why Midshipman couldn't do the same.